Okay, my name is Superintendent John Hallam, Hallam. I'm the District Officer for Moreton Police District. First of all, I'd like to start by offering my sincere condolences to a family that have lost a mother and a wife, and the mother to the children. Unfortunately, police were called to the address earlier this evening, or late last night, where they were confronted with a horrific scene. Paramedics did all they possibly could, but unfortunately the lady passed away when she was attended the hospital. Subsequently, an investigation was commenced, and through some very good investigative skills demonstrated by the detectives, they managed to locate 4 persons who were taken into custody. I can say at this point in time that 2 of those people, a 17-year-old boy from Zulmia and a 17-year-old boy from Holland Park, will be charged later today with murder, attempted murder and break and enter. The other 2 persons that were taken into custody will continue to assist us with our inquiries. Investigation is ongoing, and obviously that means there are some things that that will be very difficult to discuss here today.
The other 2 people taken into custody, are they juveniles as well?
At this point in time, it's probably not appropriate to discuss the age of those people.
Can you walk us through the sequence of events that's led the 2 underage people to being in the property, and then what led to the lady's death?
Okay. What's happened at about 11:30 last night, 2 of the persons that are to be charged, it's alleged, have entered the dwelling. A confrontation has occurred inside the dwelling and then outside on the front yard of the dwelling, where the woman sadly suffered a fatal stab wound, and the male with her also suffered a stab wound. Those 2 fled the scene. Police attended, and by using the dog squad, tracked those 2 to another address nearby.
The nature of that confrontation, was that because the 2 people who were inside the home, the residents, were trying to defend their property?
They've disturbed the offenders inside the dwelling. They were woken by, what I've been told is alleged, that they were woken by barking dogs. They disturbed them inside the dwelling, yes, and they were defending their house.
And how did she sustain a knife wound? Was it a knife from the property, or did the people come armed with a knife?
How that occurred is still subject to investigation, and it will be too early to say at this point in time how it occurred.
Can you give us more details on that weapon?
As I just said, how the weapon and how the injury was suffered is still subject to investigation, and it wouldn't be appropriate to make any comment at this point in time.
Still trying to locate that weapon?
The investigation is ongoing. We still have a crime scene at the location, and we're still making some examinations of that area.
Based on what you know so far, was this somewhat random, or was it premeditated?
What I can say is the investigation so far have failed to find any linkages between the persons that are in our custody and the victims in this matter. So there's no relationship there. So we'll continue to make some inquiries as to why that particular address was hit.
Have those 4 people in custody targeted any other homes in the area before they got to the property?
That too is subject to the ongoing investigation, and as we continue with the investigation, hopefully that more will be known in that space.
Were any of the alleged offenders known to police?
I can say that we have had prior contact with all 4 of the persons that are currently in our custody.
Were any of them on bail?
It wouldn't be appropriate to say at this point in time with regards to the bail status of any of the people that we have. That will be form part of the investigation as well, just to link it in to see if there were any crimes committed. At this point in time, the investigators haven't been able to do that, but they'll continue to do that.
What's the current state of the woman's family?
As you would expect, they're absolutely traumatised and shattered. We will continue to offer them support moving forward, and not only they are shattered, they've lost their mother and their wife. The whole community is mourning as well.
Was that 17-year-old under curfew conditions?
As I said, at this point in time, it wouldn't be appropriate to discuss those types of arrangements.
What's your message to the community? I mean, we've now got a scenario where it looks like teens have broken into a home and people have tried to defend their home, and we've got a woman and a mother dead. What's your message to the community?
My message to the community is this is a terribly sad day, that someone's life has been taken in this way. I still struggle to understand why these types of violent crimes occur, and it's occurred again. and we need to work together as a community to say no to this type of violence, and also support each other when it occurs, and does something to try and defer or deter people from committing those types of offences.
Was Emma Lovell's death preventable?
It wouldn't be appropriate to say if it's preventable or otherwise. I know the paramedics worked incredibly hard to do what they did to try and save her at the scene and later at the hospital.
Thank you.
Minister, we've now got a situation where a woman is dead. She was killed inside her own home by people underage who we understand were very familiar with the law. Is the system broken?
Well, what we have is an absolute tragedy, and my sincere thoughts and condolences, as I know every Queenslanders, go out to this grieving family. This is an incredibly sad day, and that's the most important thing we need to acknowledge, that it is a grieving family and our thoughts are with them. There is absolutely no place in our community for crime, whether it's a young person or an adult. The community has a right to expect to be safe, and as a government we know that that is one of the most important jobs that we have. It's why we invest so heavily in our frontline officers and police officers, and I want to acknowledge those who have investigated and acted so swiftly and who will continue to investigate this matter. We know it's early and those investigations are ongoing, but I also acknowledge frontline responders.
But is the system
It's
working?
happened multiple times in the past few days on the Gold Coast, and out here a woman's lost her life. So surely we need to look at some changes.
Well, what we know is that young people need to be held to account, and we made significant changes, including introducing a presumption against bail last year, and that has seen more young people held in detention and held for longer, because we know the community has a right to feel safe and they expect government will act, and we are acting.
But the courts have let these people back on the streets and they've allegedly murdered someone.
Well, the Youth Justice Act is clear that we have an expectation as a government that the community will be kept safe. The Act is clear in that regard, and when we made those changes last year, it was to make that even clearer. We know that's the community expectation. The courts, of course, will apply that legislation, but as a government, we are making sure the legislation is clear. The community should be kept safe.
So
Were the
are you
alleged
saying-
offenders under child protection?
I can't provide that information under the
So are
Act.
you saying that there's no issues here?
Well, what I'm saying to you is the community have a right to feel safe, and they called on the government to act, and we have acted, and we will continue to act, and that means having more police on the streets, as we should, and those police are doing an excellent job, and the legislation is clear and it is tough. If a young person breaks the law, they will be held to account. These sorts of offences should not happen, and we will ensure the law is strict and strong, but I cannot provide any guarantee that that will mean there will never be any more crime, but we will do everything we can always in our power to make sure that the absolute weight of the law comes down on people who break the law.
The opposition is calling for changes to the Youth Justice Act. Is that something the government is considering?
Well, it's not a day for politics. I don't think there's any place for politics. It's an absolute tragedy, and the thoughts of the community are with that family. But in regard to the opposition have had one position for the entirety of the last 7 years, and that is breach of bail. We know that when breach of bail was a law, there was not one young person who served one extra day because of that. It doesn't work. The courts didn't apply it because it didn't work, and we want to do the things to keep the community safe that do work, and that's what we're investing in under the Youth Justice Task Force.
And so you say that people will face the consequences. We understand that they were out on bail on some very serious offences, so will they only face the consequences now? Or
Well, I
should
can't-
they face the consequences before this happens?
Well, as you're aware, I can't comment on those sorts of particulars, as the officer before me said as well. What I can assure you is the Youth Justice Act is very, very clear about a young person should not be released if there is to community. And indeed, if they commit a serious offence, the repercussions can be incredibly serious. Of course, this is a matter for the courts now. I understand the QPS has advised these young people will be charged and they will go before the courts, and we need to allow the courts to consider the matter and justice to be done.
So no review on the side of the government? You're not going to look at your
Oh,
youth justice
I think-
laws and review them in
I think
waiting?
again we have always reviewed and the legislation to ensure that everything that should be done is being done, but again today is a day to acknowledge that there's been a tragedy and to absolutely send our thoughts to the family. That's what I think today is about. Sorry. Sorry, I think I missed part of that question, but if it was in relation to what people should be or how they should respond if an intruder is in their house, that's more a question for the police and an operational matter. I'm happy to hand over to the superintendent if you would like.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yes, superintendent?
If everyone's done with questions.
about how should people respond to intruders in their home?
I always say to people when they're confronted with violence to do whatever is safe to do. What happened late last night has happened. If someone else is confronted by that, they need to do what they can do best to make themselves sure that they're safe and their family's safe. And calling 000 at the earliest opportunity is one of the best things you can do.
I suspect you won't be able to take this too far, but I'll ask you, as a police officer on the beat, arresting kids like this and then seeing them back out there, is that frustrating?
We do what we do every day, and we do it to our best abilities to do what we need to do every day. Frustration is part of policing. That's just the reality of what we deal with. We have a really strong bucket of laws there that we use, but it's a whole of community problem. This isn't a policing problem. We can't arrest our way out of this. It's a whole of community challenge that youth justice space. And we're working together with other government agencies and the community and non-government agencies to make this a safer place and better for these children.
Do you expect any more charges to be laid?
The investigation is ongoing. It hasn't ended. I'm quite sure as the detectives work through the work they need to do, if they find more offences there, people will be charged and more charges will be laid.
But you've got the people in custody, sorry, can you tell us their ages? The people who have been charged?
Well, they're young people. Yeah, they're young people. They're younger than 18 years of age.
Has a court date been set for those two who have been charged?
Sorry?
Has a court date been set for those who have been charged?
No, they haven't been charged yet. They'll be charged later this afternoon, and the Watch House decide when they'll appear in court.
So, sorry, just to clarify, are you not able to tell us the ages of those two other people? Or
I said they were young
17
people.
as well?
They're young people. Okay, I'm not going to say their age. They've got to respect certain things, and it's just best to say they're young people. Anything else? Thank you. Thanks, Mark. All right. Thanks, guys.